Leni has Sanfilippo Syndrome, which is a form of childhood dementia. The ability to speech would normally go first, and then behavioural problems, sleep. They can get insomnia that lasts for 3-4 days at a time. We've literally sat in doctors' offices and they've been Googling it right in front of us. Treatments that have been proven to be transformative for these kids exist, and they're sat on the shelves because of funding. It's such a cruel condition.
So really, you are on a time limit?
Yes.
You're on like a ticking time bomb. On today's show, we have the amazing Emily. Emily talks all things Sanfilippo, that's childhood dementia.
This was a really emotional and heartfelt episode.
Hi, Emily.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
So, Leni, you have a page called Saving Leni?
Yes.
Is that correct, on Instagram?
Yeah.
So, Leni has been diagnosed with childhood dementia.
Yes.
Sanfilippo?
Yep.
To be precise. She's 2 years old, and we are raising awareness for Leni. So I don't really know much about it, and I don't think I'll do it justice by explaining it. So if I can hand it over to yourself and just tell us, how it happened.
Of course.
Why it happened.
Why? I wish it hadn't happened. I'm sure we all feel the same, but here we are. Yeah, Leni has Sanfilippo Syndrome, which is a form of childhood dementia. So there's 140 different types of childhood dementias. Sanfilippo is just one of them. It's a very, very severe, rapidly neurodegenerative genetic condition. It happened because me and my husband are both carriers of a specific mutation of this gene, and that passes down to our children. There's only 25% chance that the children will actually be affected with the condition, and unfortunately, Leni is. We found out by chance. Most children aren't diagnosed until much further along in the condition when they start to lose their motor skills. It's often presents as autism ADHD in the first kind of 4 or 5 years of the condition, and then they lose their motor skills.
Yeah, because I would actually think it would be like, say how Callie was typical, and then you have a regression,
Exactly.
And then you go straight to, it has to be autism because it presents, I suppose, the same way.
Exactly, yeah. So they develop typically until they're around 2-3 years old. So at the moment, Leni's 2.5. So she is pretty much a typical child at this point. She has got hearing loss and a speech delay. But you would kind of think that the hearing loss and the speech delay are entwined, and she has a speech delay because of the hearing loss. But at 3-4 years old, they start to regress. They lose their cognitive skills first, usually, but as we know, there's no kind of really clear typical pathway for these kids. But she starts to lose her cognitive skills initially, and that will be the ability to speech would normally go first, and then behavioural problems, sleep. They can get insomnia that lasts for 3-4 days at a time, and at that point, they usually diagnosed autism ADHD because it presents in a very, very similar way. And then when they start to lose their motor skills, which usually happens a bit later, around kind of 7-8, they usually think kind of something else is going on. And at that point, genetic investigation usually happens and they are diagnosed then. But by that point, they're half the way through their lives.
So basically, if you don't know, you don't know basically until it's, I don't like to say too late, but knowing quite early, I suppose, gives you a little bit more of hope. Or
knowing early is like crucial. I think it's crucial for any condition so that you can plan as a family, so that you can give the child the kind of care and the treatment that they need. There is no approved treatment or cure for Leni's condition at the moment, but there are clinical trials on the horizon. And an early diagnosis allows you to take part in those as they come up. If we didn't know, then we couldn't get Leni onto any of those trials. And it also, I think, is just, as a family, you need to be able to understand what's going on with your child. And I think a diagnosis is key for that. There are families that we've met over the last few months who have gone on for years and years and years. They call it the diagnosis odyssey, where you are just battling the system, trying to get a diagnosis for your child, knowing that it isn't autism ADHD, knowing that something else is going on, and being turned back at every kind of door.
Because how do we know what you do? Because you've had the testing done with Callie. Is that correct?
Well, I had genetic testing, but so have you.
But I've never had the result. They've never called me with results, or I think I've had the genetic, but have I had the testing for that? Because how do we know whether it is autism or not?
Probably not. So the only reason that we qualified for this specific genetic testing was because a family member was flagged as a carrier. And so they tested, it was called like trio whole genome sequencing or something, where they tested me, my husband and Leni and kind of mapped all of our genes to see, but that was specifically for Sanfilippo. That was what we were testing for. So I don't think we would have qualified without that family member kind of having her.
I think it should be a, what's the word when it's, you have to have that. What's the word?
Compulsory.
A compulsory test.
Yeah.
Why isn't it compulsory, do you think?
Money?
Yeah, I guess
always
so.
comes down to that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
In one way, as Jade said before, you're obviously lucky in a way because obviously the situation, the circumstance isn't lucky, but to be able to potentially start clinical trials or potentially even for your mindset and your husband's mindset that, you know, we've done our research now, we've spoken to professionals, we know that this is what is going to happen when it comes to regressions, etc. But there's so many people out there, as you kind of said, that will go through diagnosis to pillar to post to different specialists and have absolutely no idea. Is it common enough for specialists to say, okay, we can see the regressions now, we can see that things are kind of broken down and not where she used to be, this is what we're going to test for? Or is it not something that would usually come up?
No. We've literally sat in doctors' offices and they've been Googling it right in front of us. So like even most of the medical professionals, and actually it's not a criticism of the medical professionals because I actually feel like everyone we've dealt with as individuals have been fantastic. The system is completely broken, but the individuals have been brilliant. But so Leni's subtype of her condition is 1 in 200,000. So it's so rare. And I guess you can't expect people that aren't specialists to know the breadth of every single genetic condition that's out there. Taking Leni to the pediatrician with the genetic result, even at that point, the pediatrician was like, it's so rare and she doesn't present at this point like she has that. So I don't think she does.
She doesn't present yet because she's not there yet, but
I think with Sanfilippo, they do have very distinctive facial features often. And that gets more obvious as they get older. Leni's, everyone agrees that we've spoken to, are perhaps a bit more subtle. So she does have the bushy eyebrows, thick eyelashes, a low nasal bridge, full lips, but it doesn't...
And the head?
And a large head, and a very prominent forehead. But all of it just kind of looks in proportion for her. It just doesn't look as obviously Sanfilippo, whereas some children are a bit more obvious kind of facially. But when you look at the spectrum of Sanfilippo kids, some of them experience a physical decline before the cognitive decline. Some of them are very severe cognitive kind of decline, but less so physical. It's so different. And often it depends on the child, but also what interventions they've been able to get in a clinical trial format throughout their lives. So there isn't really, I can't imagine a doctor being able to look at one of these kids and being like, 100% they've got Sanfilippo.
And I mean, the worst thing you can do probably is for the doctor to be like, she's not presenting at the moment, come back next year or something, because time is not on the side.
No, it's very, very rapid. Once the regression starts, it's very rapid.
Is there always a regression or can they be born with autistic traits?
So I think it's probably, they're born with it, right? But it's because so her condition is because she has a fault in a gene that produces an enzyme. And without that enzyme, this toxic waste builds up on her brain. And it's the accumulation of that causes the regression and the brain damage. So although they're born with it, and some are born more obviously with Sanfilippo, the accumulation often isn't significant enough at birth for it to cause the kind of cognitive and like the regression. But there are children that I've seen who are more severe at birth and they're born even with things like fast breathing. Like there's some things that they're born with that are perhaps, and like facially you can see that perhaps they're a little bit more severe. But again, like any kind of neurodivergence, neurodisability, it's a spectrum.
Yeah.
Some are sick, and Leni at the moment is doing really, really well, and everyone is quite shocked at how well she's doing. But
because...
who knows?
Because is that where she is on the spectrum?
We think,
perhaps?
we think it's just that perhaps she is a more mild version of Sanfilippo, but at any point that could change.
Should she be having her regression? But she shouldn't be having her regression yet anyway.
No, but she's still developing.
She hasn't come to a standstill.
Exactly. So you hope and you expect your child to continue to develop like this. Between kind of 2, 3, the development would usually start to peter off and then the regression would begin. Whereas Leni at the moment is still on a kind of very clear upwards trajectory with her development, which is great.
That's fantastic.
So going through like more how you're feeling at home every single day, I can only imagine just kind of a similar situation, but not. So my daughter Callie has got autism and I have my son Marley, and every day I would wake up, check that he hasn't regressed, wake up in the morning, check he can point at me or have eye contact. Or you must surely every single day have that horrendous worry that today's the day that we notice a regression.
Yeah, it is. I literally have this like constant panic where I wake up every morning and exactly that. I'm like, are we, is she going to forget how to say mummy today? Or is she going to forget, how to pull her top on? Just all these basic skills that we're really working hard. And she works so hard to earn. And you're just in this, I think also because we're pushing so hard for treatment, and it feels very hopeful and very close that she might get it just in time. But that kind of urgency and that panic is like fueling it, because I'm like, just hang on, don't lose the skills until we can get you the treatment. And that is, it's awful. And they call it anticipatory grief, right? That you are just grieving this child and this life. And it doesn't mean you love your child any less. She's incredible. And like everyone that meets her falls in love with her and she's amazing. But I want a different life for her and for our family. And that is really, sorry if I'm a bit upset, but that is just really hard and it's like the stress that we're under as parents. I don't feel like, and we're under Great Ormond Street and they offer us counselling, but that is it. That's the level of support that you get as a parent. And it's like, this is huge for parents, that you, with any condition for your child, you are having to wake up, carry that mental load every single day, the stress, the worry, like the appointments, everything else. And on top of that, we're obviously campaigning and advocating. And like, it is, as I said before, the system is broken and like no one speaks to each other in the medical system. So I'm carrying this ring binder that's already absolutely huge from appointment to try and explain, well, the speech and language therapist said this, so audiology should do this, and trying to link all of that together on top of working and just trying to live a life.
Just being a mummy.
Being a mummy and also a friend and a wife and actually doing something for myself and just trying to have any kind of normal family life because I think we think the grief is for our child and the life that we wanted for them, but also the life that we want for ourselves and for our family. It's a hard life that we're all living now. And like everyone thinks it's not going to happen to them. Yeah. Like any of these conditions. Yeah. You just can't, you never in your life imagine that you're going to be the person with a child with any kind of disability, neurodivergence, anything. And then it happens and you're like, how on earth am I supposed to survive this?
It's like you're never prepared and you're never ready. No. And why should you be?
No. And you never can. We're obviously quite new in the diagnosis, but I can't ever imagine getting there to a point where I'm like, okay, this is actually my life. No.
I don't think you ever will get to that point. Well, I certainly haven't. I know it's only been 4 years, but I'm certainly nowhere closer to even accepting that this is our life and that is her life.
So talk about treatment then, because I obviously, again, don't know too much about Sanfilippo, but I do remember the first ever appointment I had with the paediatrician for Callie, all the, I don't know what you call them, all the features that you were mentioning, actually, even though you said that doctors don't really suggest it, Callie's doctor did.
Wow.
Callie has got a unibrow. She's got bushy eyebrows. She's got long eyelashes. She's got a very tiny nose, like the most perfect nose you'll ever see, but it's too perfect.
Yeah.
Great, gorgeous lips. And the first thing, and she's tall. I don't know if that height is a thing.
Height is a thing. Yeah.
So the first thing they said before autism was we would like to do some genetic testing. So I was very lucky with that, but that is all I know about Sanfilippo. It never went any further with it for us. You mentioned treatment. I didn't know there was a treatment. Does that mean that, tell us about that. What can it do?
So when we obviously launched a campaign for Leni and we got her diagnosis and we're in this very, very dark place. And then we saw that some families in the States were fundraising for treatment and there isn't a treatment. So like, that's just to be really clear. There are no approved treatments anywhere in the world for Sanfilippo. Sanfilippo is known as MPS 3 and she has type B of that. So there's no treatments for that anywhere in the world. But all these families in the States were fundraising for treatment and we were like, hang on a minute, our and I've so many people in the rare disease community are told the same thing, literally, like almost word for word. There are no treatments. Take your child home and love them for the short amount of time that they're with you, basically. And that is like, oh God, it's catastrophic.
That's heart-wrenching.
Yeah. But that felt so finite that we were like, okay, this is our future and this is what we have to accept. And that was almost easier than now what we're having to do to try and get her access, because there are treatments. And the more that you unpick it, the more that you're like, this is so wrong. Treatments that have been proven to be transformative for these kids, as in going on to lead normal lives or near normal lives, exist. And they're sat on the shelves in labs because of funding and bureaucracy. So they exist. And these families now, I think there's just like this big push of these kind of family advocates that are trying to get these treatments back out off the shelves and into kids. Because if they get it young enough, Leni at this age could go on to lead a near normal life. If she starts to regress, it will improve her quality of life. And I think it's so important that all kids receive treatment because it will improve their quality of life. But the kind of option for it to be transformative it isn't going to be as kind of dramatic for them in terms of the improvement. But there are, so when we first launched, there was this one treatment. Now there looks like there might be 5 potential treatments on the table, and it's kind of a race for whichever one comes first for us. But there are, Leni's condition is because she has a fault in a gene that produces this enzyme. If they can fix the gene or artificially infuse the enzyme, then that should hopefully kind of treat the condition. So there's enzyme replacement therapies, which are much more extreme. And they basically replace the faulty gene so that her body produces the enzyme by itself. That would class as a cure. So she would need a one-off treatment to replace the gene, and then her body produces the enzyme and like, amazing, she's cured. These treatments really should be for much younger children. Leni, even now, by the time they've replaced the gene, it started producing the enzyme. It would start to get a little bit, maybe she's a little bit too old. We're talking like 6 months old, they should be treated. And that's why newborn screening is so important, because they could treat them at newborn and they would live
But we don't know
life.
about it, do we? Because they're
not tested.
Us a test.
Yeah. And newborn screening, obviously, we're actually one of, in the developed world, I think the UK are like the lowest, if not one of, but I'm pretty sure where we test for like the least conditions, which is just madness because we're meant to be these kind of world leaders in science. Gene therapy would still be, if we can stabilize Leni now, then gene therapy would still be an option for her later. But the other treatments are enzyme replacement therapies, which are more proven. They've kind of run them over many years. And they artificially infuse her body with the enzyme that it's missing. That breaks down the toxic waste, prevents the accumulation, and essentially works as our bodies work, producing the enzyme.
But that's once a week, isn't it, for the rest of her life?
Yeah, she would need that. That would never cure her, and it would not, her body will never produce that enzyme by itself with that treatment. So she would need that infused into her body artificially for the rest of her life, either through an IV or through, they fit a permanent port in their brain. So she would require neurosurgery, and then they would pump it in through the port.
So it's just keeping it at bay, basically.
Yes. So that would hopefully stabilize her, but obviously it doesn't stop. If she got it now, it would stabilize her where she is and allow her to continue to develop. It will never reverse any damage that's already been done, which is why it's so important to treat them at a young age. Because
so really, you are on a time limit.
Yes.
You're on like a ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
So how is it ever going to happen, the treatment? Like your fundraising?
Yeah.
Where does the treatment come from? How much money do you need?
The money, how much money you need is literally like a finger in the wind, or whatever the saying is. We don't know.
Yeah.
And we've raised a huge amount of money, and that is kind of, it's in a trust, protected, so that we will use that for research for Sanfilippo type B. Whether we use that to fund a trial that is a treatment that's approved and we need to travel for it and give that to Leni specifically. But our hope is that we can use it to help fund a trial, and ideally one in the UK.
For
Leni, but also for other children with her condition to benefit from.
Enough, though, where you can fund another child as well.
Yes. And I think there are other children that would benefit because it's so rare and there's so few sites that will be established, people will come from Europe to the UK. So I know families that travel from the UK to Germany every single week to get a treatment for their kid. So people will travel for it. But we are cautiously hopeful, that there will be a treatment available for Leni this year.
We're all crossing our fingers for you.
Thank you. Because I think that would, if she can get it this year, in our minds, we really hope that
she wouldn't have started
that she wouldn't have regressed yet, and that will be kind of enough to be transformative for her. But we just don't know.
More thing to have to live with.
It's very dark and very difficult. But we feel we're so lucky to get such an early diagnosis by pure chance.
Yeah.
Leni is so incredible. And we have said multiple times that of anyone to have got this diagnosis, we consider ourselves very lucky. You know, we both have good jobs, we have good salaries, we have amazing friends and family to support us. We have just moved back in with my dad, who has like given up his whole house for us to live.
Wow.
I mean, he still lives in there,
Yeah.
but he's like, you know, accommodated us. Like, we've got such an incredible community around us to support Leni and us as a family. Sometimes I look at some of these other parents and, you know, it might be a single mum who can't work because her kid requires, you know, constant care.
Yeah.
And when I look at, and, you know, they haven't got a support network around them, they're incredibly isolated. It's so isolating getting these diagnoses anyway.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine the hardship that other people have to go through. And we consider ourselves really lucky in that way.
So have you gathered a community? Is there a community? Like I have come across maybe one other account, I think perhaps on TikTok, and they're definitely in America.
Yep.
You probably know who I'm talking about.
Yep.
She's quite big. And obviously I learn a lot from there, and she's just gorgeous. But, you know, as we always feel, we're in the autism world, and although the village can feel really small, there is certainly a community around us. Is there sort of community for you?
There is a community. It's very small, obviously, because the condition's so rare. But there is a community. I think for us, as I said, we're very new in our diagnosis. And I think we have struggled a little bit in like connecting with the community because of how the syndrome is diagnosed. A lot of the children are much older and they're therefore much further along in the syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And we are looking at Leni, our 2-year-old.
You don't want to see the future that may be.
Exactly. And then we're looking at the future of what, and it is impossible for me to put the two together.
Yeah.
And I think that's why Leni's campaign and like everything that we're doing is, I think people can really relate to her, because at the moment she is just like a typical 2-year-old. I think when you see a severely disabled child, and that is our future if Leni can't get treatment, it's the most severe decline that you can imagine. But I cannot relate to that. I can't look at that child and imagine that is my child. And that is the reality for me if we can't get treatment. So other families, I can't imagine looking at, like, I feel like that's why people have a kind of really, Leni's story is kind of, people are looking at her and being like, that could easily be my child.
Yeah.
And that is the future that this family are facing. So that the community have been incredible, and they've rallied and they have all sent lovely messages, and they're incredibly supportive. And some of the charities have been amazing, but some of the charities have not been. But I think when we look at Leni's like future, it's too difficult for me. And so I can't quite get there that I can reach out to those people. And I think also we reach out to them, we're like, oh, was your child doing this when they were 2? And they don't know, because at that point they didn't realise they had a diagnosis.
And also they may have not been like that at 2. And that's what we find really difficult.
You know, remember when we first were friends, I couldn't see you.
No. And then Jade would ask me loads of questions. Well, did Callie used to do that? And, you know, or...
Didn't matter what Callie did.
Because
Bailey was
it doesn't mean that anyone else is going to do it. And I'm assuming because it is a large spectrum that it's the same.
Yep.
So it's kind of, the community in the villages are amazing, but you cannot still compare your child to anyone who is on a spectrum, because everyone is so different.
And I think we were talking about this the other day, but I was like, not only do we have the pain of comparing our child to a typically developing child, and it is painful, like Leni, although you look at her and you're like, oh, she's like a typical toddler, she is extremely hyperactive, like next level hyper. And that makes going out we cannot go out for dinners. We can't, like, she will not sit and watch TV, like all of those things, which are very kind of autism, ADHD, that it makes things really difficult for us. Like even sitting in the car, she gets so like bored and wants like out of the car immediately. Like it makes things really challenging for us, and we have to build our lives around her routine and all of those things. which I'm sure you guys know well.
We can understand.
So we have the pain of kind of looking at our friends' kids and being like, well, one, why don't you have this awful diagnosis that we have? And we now have, like, you guys get to just go on living your lives and we are left behind. And we're kind of comparing, trying not to, but naturally you compare Leni to a typically developing child. And then we have the pain of comparing her to a Sanfilippo child or a child with a neurodisability. And we're like, we have this double comparison where you're like, I'm comparing her to typically developing kids. And then I'm also comparing her to Sanfilippo children. And like, is that going to happen to her? Or I might see a Sanfilippo child that's doing really well. And you're like, oh, well, you know, is Leni not going to get to where they are? And it's like, it's kind of this
exhausting
constant comparison.
You're basically looking at your present, your what if, and your future.
Yeah. And also your past.
Yeah.
Because you're looking, and we had this amazing holiday that we got for we basically had her genetics assessment. And they told us, so they said it's going to be 4 months for a genetics appointment. So we waited the 4 months. Actually, shockingly, we got a private test done in that time and it came back that Gus wasn't a carrier, my husband.
Wow.
And then it was proven that that was actually wrong. So we had this like few months of like ignorant bliss where we were like, there's no way, because we both have to be carriers. We're like, there's no way it can be Sanfilippo. We then had the genetics assessment and they confirmed then it was going to be 8 to 10 months for results. And we're like, how on earth can anyone wait 8 to 10 months for results? And he then called me the next day and was like, we have 100 rapid response tests that are licensed for the UK every year for the NHS. And they're reserved for, and like I literally can hear his voice being like, they're reserved for the most severe cases. And Leni qualifies for one of those tests. And we were like, what is going on? Like, he can't possibly be Sanfilippo because my husband's not a carrier because this private test.
So you both have to be carriers in order to have a Sanfilippo?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it's only a 25% chance that your
children are affected. Yeah. So we were still like, it's not possible. And he put in this test. But then we went on holiday because we had this holiday booked anyway. And he was like, it brings the wait time down to 2 weeks from 8 to 10 months.
Wow.
So we were literally like, oh God, we went on holiday. And that holiday was like, we still in our minds were like, it cannot be Sanfilippo. And at this point, I think we probably were, you know, in denial. But we were like, there's just no way. And that holiday was incredible, like the best. And like we keep saying, like, if we could just go back and stay in that moment in time without that diagnosis, like, because she was just on like amazing form. It was just such a great holiday.
Both were on amazing form.
Yeah, because we were like, it can't possibly be. Like, we had the result of this private test and that was just such a special holiday. And we were like, God, so you're not only looking at your present and trying to live in the present because it's without treatment, it's only going to get worse for us. So it's like, well, let's live in this present moment. You're also looking at the future and then you're also looking back at your past being like that pre-diagnosis time where
and
you
the
just,
what ifs.
Yeah. And like, yeah, it's really difficult because you're like, I wish I had savoured that time more because it was so special without this dark cloud hanging over the whole family.
But how I think of things now, and I'm sure just to give a bit of advice, maybe it's my life coaching advice, you have to always look back at that holiday though. And when you're feeling those dark times, you have to look back and think that you need, if you want to feel that way again, so you will when you think about those memories. And you will have amazing times like that, regardless of any regression. I mean, we can even vouch that our children have had regressions. And even though it's so difficult as a parent to see what they were doing and now they can't, there are so many other things that they're still amazing and you can still enjoy them just sometimes in a different way.
Yeah. It's different. That's what it is. You know, when I've done a post before, what was it, Paris, and where it's all my other friends' children are going to France on holiday, just say, and I wanted to go, but I ended up in Spain.
Oh yeah,
it's
that's
different.
What's that?
It's the Welcome to Holland one. Yeah,
it's Welcome to Holland. It's like that, really.
Yeah,
it's not that it's any less. It's just different.
Yeah.
I have a personal question, which you don't have to answer. But again, I think people always think about this. Now you and Gus are both carriers and Leni has Sanfilippo. Would you think about going down having another baby route or not?
So yes. I think the fact that Leni has Sanfilippo, I always wanted a big family anyway. This has like fueled that even more because I want to build a family around her and like surround her with love, and also for her siblings to know her as she is now, and for her to know her siblings before, hopefully she doesn't, but if she starts to lose her memory. We actually very sadly found out that I was pregnant 2 weeks after we got Leni's diagnosis. Well, it wasn't sad at the time. At the time, we were like, amazing. This is like the hope that we need. I had to carry the baby for 3 months. But unfortunately, the baby was, at that point, we were told that the baby was also affected. So we were like, 25% chance is like 1 in 4, and we're currently 2 of 2. So the maths isn't quite adding up. But lots of families you see with Sanfilippo children go on to have multiple children with Sanfilippo. Mm-hmm. And actually that's, again, we consider ourselves lucky in that because we had Leni's diagnosis, if we didn't, we would have had that baby and we would have had 2 children with Sanfilippo and potentially gone on to have more children. So we had an impossible decision. It was so difficult for us to make because, and we've received obviously trolls and things online about
you always
it.
Will.
Yeah. But they, were like, well, is that a reflection that you don't love Leni and that you would have got rid of Leni? And like, absolutely not. But I wouldn't wish Sanfilippo on anyone. Yeah. It's such a cruel condition. Mm. And there is currently, if there were treatment options, it'd be a different story. But there is no treatment options, and that child will suffer for basically their whole life, their short life. So we decided to terminate that pregnancy. But we are now going through the IVF route. It's a very long process.
It's a whole journey in itself.
I know. And they're like, you need to minimize stress. And we're like,
yeah, right.
Have you seen how stressful our lives are currently? So yeah, we are starting that process. And we're just desperate to grow the family and grow it in a way that, will not take away. We want to make sure we're adding to Leni's life. And we feel that we are able to kind of mentally and physically like cope with that. Because I think that was another question that we had to ask, like, can we actually, if adding another child was going to take away from what we could give to Leni and what Leni needed, and we don't feel that it will. We think it will add to her more than it will take away.
I think it's actually really beautiful for you to be so honest and protect yourselves and Leni. And I think that's the most important thing. And it's just really wise. Another awkward, horrible question.
No, please ask away.
What's the life expectancy of children with Sanfilippo?
With no treatment.
So with no treatment, again, it's such a spectrum. And I've had people reach out to me and be like, I know someone who's 25 years old with Sanfilippo, but there is different strains within. So there's things called attenuated, which basically means that their body produces some level of enzyme, but not as much as like any of us. Those children, their symptoms are less and they have a longer life expectancy. So I think often when people say like, oh, I know someone with Sanfilippo and they've lived like 25 years, the likelihood is that they have an attenuated form.
Whereas Leni has
none. Yeah, so she does not have attenuated. She is classed as severe in that she produces 0 enzyme. A life expectancy for her subtype, which is B, is probably early to mid-teens, but could be younger. There are children that have passed at 8 years old and there are children that have passed slightly later. It really depends on how her symptoms kind of progress. But yeah, it would be around 15 years is kind of what we would be looking at.
So have you ever looked into getting these tests become a
compulsory?
Have you looked down that route of how someone would be able to do that?
So our main focus at the moment is on obviously getting Leni access to treatment. But then as well as that, we are really focused on the newborn screening element. Yeah. So I think to try and make genetic testing for everyone compulsory or at least optional, if you like an option that you can get that on the NHS, it's a huge thing. I think there's also, I personally don't agree with it, but I'm sure there's issues of morality in terms of like, should we be testing this because it prevents, does it stop you picking your partner? Do you start to pick people based on genetics? Like, I don't know. But I think that's a huge change for the country. Whereas newborn screening exists. Yeah. We test for hardly any genetic conditions in our newborn screening panel. We're one of the least advanced in the modern world. And now that there are treatments on the very near horizon, that's kind of the thing that you need is that there is the demand because there is some people are being diagnosed with this condition and that there are treatments available, because if there aren't treatments available, they just won't include it in the newborn screening panel. because they're going to screen for them and then you can't treat it. I still don't think that's right. I think you should be screened so that you can manage.
Can it not be told when you're pregnant?
So I guess you could. Well, yes, you can, because obviously I was. Yeah. I don't know though whether I think we only test for chromosomal issues maybe when you're pregnant rather than genetic conditions. Yeah. But yes, I mean you can.
I think that should also be.
But that in itself was, there is a risk obviously for that.
Is there?
Because they basically go in and take a sample from the placenta.
Okay.
Because the placenta matches the baby's DNA, and that can obviously trigger a miscarriage as well. So I guess there'd be risks of that. But newborn screening, there is no reason why, because these treatments are so transformative on younger kids, the genetic treatments, they can actually, if it gets approved, they can actually do those in utero. So they could alter the baby's genes in utero, and then the baby is born as a healthy baby. So I think, but newborn screening it just absolutely has to happen.
Yeah, I agree.
And there are so many rare diseases that are advocating for it. And I think we came into it quite naive that we were like, we're going to get this included in the panel. And like we got a meeting with the Department of Health and we were like, this is great. And then we spoke to some of the charities, and one of the charities, the MPS Society, have been incredible. But they basically have been advocating for something, I think it's called MLD, a different condition, but to be included in the newborn screening for like 8 years.
Oh, wow.
And that has a treatment that is proven to be effective.
Wow.
And
it's all down to money.
It's all down to money.
But then you said that you gave me a statistic before, which makes total sense to me, as in for Leni's life expectancy, it's going to cost to keep her alive £8 million.
Yep.
And then if she has the life-saving treatment, please God, if it becomes available, it will cost $1 million.
Yeah. So the gene therapy on average, and that's also in a clinical trial. Obviously, if it's at scale, it will be cheaper than that. Yeah. But at the moment, the cost, so one of the clinical trials is $6 million for 6 kids for a gene therapy. So that's $1 million. Obviously, it's like very, like not very good, like accurate maths, but like it's,
girl math.
Yeah, girl math. £1 million for one child to be treated with gene therapy. That is essentially a cure, and she wouldn't require ongoing treatment in theory.
Yeah.
If she got it young enough. Her treatments without any kind of interventive treatment would be $8 million for her life. So if she was treated now for £1 million, you're saving $7 million on the NHS.
It's so short-sighted.
It just doesn't make any sense.
It's totally confusing.
Yeah.
I mean, keep fighting.
Yeah.
We're right behind you. Keep advocating, because we've learnt so much, just sitting here for this short period of time. Yeah. We generally wish you all the best. We pray and pray that you get those trials, and that she thrives to be the absolute person she was meant to be. And she looks gorgeous.
She's beautiful.
Everyone, go and follow, support, and we're right behind you. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Emily.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.